Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Rapid City Legal and Finance Committee meeting for January 30th, 2019. I'd like to start this meeting off with a roll call and determination of quorum, please. Here. Great. Now that a quorum has been established, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Unless, second. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Solomon and second by Mrs. Drury. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, let's move on to our general public comment portion. This is a time for any member in the audience to discuss items not on today's agenda. We do have one speaker request form. Are there any others? Okay, we have one from Mr. Gene Tyon. Please approach the podium. You just state your name and you have 3 minutes to present. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Gene Tyon, and I here today to as part of the. I put in a request for the CBD, the block grant, but I wasn't recommended for funding, so I'm here to see if I can get reconsidered for the funding.
Okay.
And I got a handout here to explain a little bit more about our program.
Please. You just pass it. There's no action that we can take today.
Yeah, I understand.
But
no,
we will,
this is for the future here.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we are a nonprofit cultural-based recovery program in addiction and behavior and whatnot. You know, so we have an office space and working with Hani Shafi on 201 Kansas City Street, right down the street here. So what we like to do is address basically cultural identity development is what we focus on. Helping people understand, especially our youth, understand why they're acting the way they are, what had happened in history, intergenerational, that really compounds the trauma of an individual. So we help them work through this and understanding that things happen that they don't not understand, you know, and so it's a long-term, it's a beginning of a long-term relationship with our clients, and then to really focus on who we are through getting to the core issues. It's intense, you know, to really work through this trauma. I've been doing this for 20 some odd years, and in the community here and on a Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and helping other individuals through our cultural ceremonies. And the name Oa'i Luta is, you just pronounce it, Oa'i Luta means moving forward in a sacred way. And Okola Kichie is translated into organization, program, or group together. So that's, you see the Okola Kichie on a lot of Native American organizations. So today I just wanted to explain a little bit about our program and how it can really help in the homeless, the treatment, the domestic violence, behavioral health management, the incarceration. You know, it's overall can help the community in a positive way. And I really thank you for allowing me this time, and I hope you do take it into reconsideration.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay. All right. Thank you for speaking. Okay, general public portion is now closed, and we're going to move on to our consent items. Today's consent items on the agenda are 1 through 10. We can open this up to public comment. Okay, seeing none. Great.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and let's move forward. Do we have any items that are pulled on our consent calendar or consent agenda, 1 through 10? Oh, okay. All right. All right, moving along to number 11 from the City Attorney's Office. It's a, oh, that's what I thought I did. And you said we already did that? Oh, okay. All right, so non-consent items are 11 through 19. Public comment is open. Anybody? Any speaker requests? Okay, now that is closed. Now we will move to number 11 from the City Attorney's Office. Second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6277, an ordinance to amend Title II and corresponding sections of the Rapid City Municipal Code to accurately reflect current departmental organization.
Second.
Motion approved by Mr. Solomon, second by Mr. Laurenti. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and let's move along to number 12 through community development. We have an introduction and first reading of ordinance number 6265, an ordinance to amend chapter 15.26 of the Rapid City Municipal Code to adopt the 2018 International Mechanical Code. We have a motion to approve by Mr. Lewis, a second by Mrs. Drury, and I think Mrs. Drury is in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was wondering if Brad could give us kind of an update on what's going on with this.
Sure. I'm Brad from Building Services. Good afternoon. The 4 other building code update ordinances passed second reading, so they're going to go into effect in a couple weeks. But what happened with this one is the board initially approved to have the energy code included in the 5 codes, but then later there was some opposition to that and at public comment, and so they changed their mind on that in December. We had to redo the mechanical code. There were quite a few references to the energy codes in the mechanical code. It took a month to fix it. We had the board approved it on January 8th. Had an open house last week, and so this is why it's been delayed for a month. That's what happened.
Okay, so my understanding is there was just some glitches with part of it, had to be refined, so you're bringing it back now, and that's why it's not in the same sync as the rest.
Yes.
Okay, I yield. Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor is to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Number 13, this is the first reading and introduction of ordinance number 6295, an ordinance to allow the Historic Sign Review Committee to adopt guidelines for administrative approval of sign permit applications by amending subsection 17.50.080Q of the Rapid City Municipal Code. We have Mr. Solomon in the queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I direct a question to Sarah Hansel from
Absolutely.
Community Development? Hi, Sarah.
Good afternoon.
Would you mind giving us an overview of what this entails?
I do. I have a few slides prepared to give some background information about this item. Mostly this item is making some changes to the procedures that we use for historic sign review in Rapid City. A little bit of background on the Historic Sign Review Committee. It's a 5-person volunteer committee appointed by the council. And what they do is they look at proposals for new signage in the historic district. And based on the ordinance, they are to consider such factors as size and position, projection, color, message, texture, materials, illumination, and lettering style. Here are a few examples of some signs in the downtown historic district that they've reviewed over the last year. As far as the review process goes, an applicant will submit an application to the sign code technician, who then forwards it to me, and we get it ready for the next historic sign board agenda. Those meetings occur on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of each month, so depending on when someone submits, they may have up to a 2-week delay or more until they're able to have their permit reviewed. I included the graphic at the bottom, not so that you could read it in detail, but just to give you a sense of that's exactly what the parameters are in place today. That's from the ordinance. There's not a lot of detail given as to what types of information we're looking for when we're reviewing signs in the historic district. And that's part of the reason we're bringing this amendment forward. There are some issues that we want to fix with our current process. In 2018, there were 23 historic sign applications. Every single one of them was approved. The average meeting's about 5 to 15 minutes long, which isn't, a lot of preparation to do for such a short meeting for an application to be generally always approved. We do have issues with quorum. Sometimes if members are out of town, it's difficult to have a quorum and we need to reschedule it in order to have a 5-minute meeting a week later. We are having trouble recruiting new members to the sign board. And the current criteria really does lack very much description or explanation of what the goals are. So what this amendment does is it grants authority to city staff to review applications, and it also gives the board the opportunity to adopt design guidelines so that over time they can adapt and create more guidance to the community on what the goals and objectives for signage in historic districts are. So just as an example, this was linked to the agenda, whereas before the criteria said that materials will be reviewed, the draft guidelines that we're looking at kind of give more specific, well, what if it's a wood sign? What if it's a metal sign? Kind of what are we hoping to see and not see? And we hope that this will give applicants more information up front and just make it more clear what the expectations are. I will point out that if staff is uncomfortable making a decision on a sign, they can refer it to the committee, who would meet on an as-needed basis, and those decisions are appealable to the committee as well. The last thing that this ordinance amendment does is it creates a historic sign register, and this would be a new tool in Rapid City to help us preserve some of our cool old signage that we have that may not conform with the sign code today. These are these iconic signs in Rapid City, like the Stock Grower sign. A lot of them are neon, but not all of them necessarily. And so this would be a tool to allow the owners of those signs to rehabilitate them and maintain them with less interference from the sign if they don't conform with the current sign code. So our recommendation is to approve this ordinance, and I can take any questions if you have any.
Do we have any questions? Okay, I welcome a motion. Motion to approve by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Laurenti. All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving along to number 14. First reading and introduction of ordinance number 6296, an ordinance to update and clarify the criteria and procedure for granting variances to the zoning code by amending section 17.54.020 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Welcome a motion. Motion approved by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Number 15, first reading and introduction of ordinance number 6297, an ordinance to amend the LDR1 zoning district to add townhouses as conditional use by amending section 17.10.030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Mr. Young, you have the floor.
Yes, for items 15 through 19, these are considered housekeeping updates to our code. I've got Fletcher here who can give a real brief introduction to each one of those to tell you the purpose and what we're accomplishing on these.
Thank you.
So as Ken just explained, it's Fletcher with Current Planning. This first one is housekeeping. What we've done in the past is we revised our townhome section to include townhomes in a planned development as a conditional use in a low-density residential district. This puts it in the low-density residential district language so that so that everyone can read it and interpret it correctly instead of just staff saying this is how we do it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Lewis, second by Ms. Drury. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Number 16, we have a first reading and introduction of ordinance number 6298, an ordinance to revise the conditional uses in the medium residential zoning district by amending section 17.12.030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Fletcher, go ahead.
And this one, again, another housekeeping item. Townhomes and duplexes are identified as a permitted use in medium density, which supports higher density development. We did have two items in the conditional use permits that said that they were conditional uses. So cleaning that up and then some additional language which is outdated in the medium density residential district.
Great, thank you for that explanation.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Solomon, second by Ms. Drury. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Number 17, first reading and introduction of ordinance number 6299, an ordinance to amend screening requirements between zoning districts by amending sections 17.18.080, as well as 17.20.080, 17.30.070, 17.32.070, as well as 17.36.080, and last but not least, 17.40.070 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
So this is one that staff's had to deal with for a while, and it always requires variances. It started out with just changing the word adjacent to abutting. Adjacent meaning it can share right-of-way with a residential property. Abutting means a commercial property would have to be touching a residential property in order to require a screening fence. And what happens is we'll have a commercial property across the street from a residential property. Based on the definitions in the ordinance, they would have to provide a 5 to 6 foot high screening fence in that front yard, which would block their driveway, as well as creating pedestrian site triangle issues and all sorts of issues. So what it clarifies is changes the wording, and then we're saying we don't want chain link fences with slats between commercial and residential. And then finally, the director has been authorized to allow or to approve zoning exceptions, so it's including the language which says if there are any issues such as drainage, flood hazard, or easements, which would require that the fence be moved, that the director can sign off. Now, before this meeting, a revised ordinance was brought forward to you saying, making one change to the language, which was removing community development director. Instead of having it say community development director, it removes community development so that everything just refers to the director. So if our department name changes ever again, it doesn't have to be fixed again.
Great. Excellent explanation, and thank you for those examples. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Solomon and second by Mr. Laurenti. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And number 18, first reading and introduction of ordinance number 6300, an ordinance to revise the uses permitted in the light industrial zoning district by amending section 17.22.020 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Fletcher?
Okay, what we identified was that we had firearms and ammunition manufacturing in the light industrial district identified twice. So we're getting rid of one of those and then replacing it with allowing utility substations as a permitted use, provided they're not within 250 feet of a residential district or a residential dwelling. If it is within that 250 feet, then it would be a conditional use.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mrs. Drury, second by Mr. Laurenti. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And number 19, first reading and introduction of ordinance number 6301, an ordinance to allow a car wash as a permitted use in the general commercial zoning district by amending section 17.18.020 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
We're trying to make this a little more straightforward for developers in this city. When we have a car wash and it's not within 250 feet of a residential district or dwelling, we want that to be a permitted use rather than going before the Planning Commission. So recently we've had one up on Mall Drive for Fleet Farm. They had to go through a conditional use. It wasn't within, there's no residential nearby. It doesn't make sense to make them go through that conditional use permit process. So if they can meet the criteria of being 250 feet away from a residential district or dwelling, then we want it to be permitted.
Right, another relevant example. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Solomon, second by Mrs. Drury. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And number 20 from the Finance Office.
These are typical cleanup assessments. There's just some miscommunication when it was sent up to the attorney's office to be placed on the agenda. So,
Motion to approve by Mr. Laurenti, second by Mrs. Drury. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I do have Mr. Young in the queue. I apologize if I overlooked that.
No, that's fine.
You have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank you for allowing us to make a real brief summary presentation of these ordinances. I think if it's okay with you, we'll plan on doing that with any ordinance amendment that we bring forward to you. I found in the past that we feel like we think we know what's going on, and then we end up having further questions later on down the road, and I would like to be able to address those up front as much as possible. So we failed to make that presentation today with our variances ordinance. So if there are any questions, I'm here to answer those. It didn't seem that perhaps there were, but in the future, we'd like to be able to do this.
I think they're short, concise, relevant, and explains it. I do appreciate the examples. Yep, especially to the committee, and can help us with City Council as well. So thank you. Good
Thank you.
leadership. Okay, I will.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, I have motion to adjourn by Mr. Laurenti, second by Ms. Drury. We do have Vision Fund hearings tomorrow at 5:30 in this chambers, as well as a City Council meeting on Monday, February 4th at 6:30. I welcome the public to attend. Thank you so much.